we're going to explore today a practice that a mindfulness practice that we can use when we are in challenge in relationship, or actually when we're stuck or triggered in any way, whether in relationship or not. And that practice is called RAIN. And the practice of RAIN supports us from shifting to kind of being lost in unconscious and kind of habituated ways of being in mental processes and reactivity, and allows us to inhabit more presence and awaken from an unconscious state. Okay, so I'm going to pull up a slide or two and let you see these things visually for an anchor here. Okay, so the 5 A's for healthy relationships are here: attention, acceptance, appreciation, affection, and allowing. Those are the 5 A's. And here's the definition of mindfulness. Mindfulness is purposely attending to one's present moment experience without judgment. Okay, so what are mindful relationships? They're relationships in which we connect with ourselves and others mindfully with the 5 A's. Okay, so what is RAIN? Okay, so RAIN is a very specific way of kind of giving ourselves the 5 A's, okay, so that we can give them to others. So RAIN is, the R stands for recognizing what is happening within us. A is for allowing whatever is happening within us to be as it is. The I is investigating our internal experience with kind and gentle attention and compassion. And the N is nurturing ourselves so that we can return to our natural state of presence. Okay, so I'm going to tease that out a little bit. So the R of RAIN refers to recognizing, and that means turning our focus and our attention to whatever thoughts, emotions, desires, sensations we're experiencing in the moment. And questions that support that inquiry is: what's happening inside me? What are my thoughts, my wants, my emotions? And in this stage, we're attempting to let go of preconceived ideas of ourselves and simply be with what is, listening to ourselves. The A of RAIN stands for allowing, and just letting these feelings, sensations, desires just be as they are. And questions that support that are just like, can I be with this? May I allow this to be this as it is? We can have a tendency to want to, at this point in particular, to act, to solve, to fix. And that's the tendency we're wanting to relax and bring that tendency and that desire into what it is we're allowing. The I in RAIN is the investigating. And here we're bringing this curious attention to our internal experience and asking questions like, what's the worst part of this? What am I believing right now? What's underneath this experience? What's my unmet need? Where am I feeling this in my body? And how does that feel? What's familiar about this? And what does that place inside me need right now? What's it wanting? Now, people can tend to see investigating as a time to kind of like get in their heads and analyze and figure out why. And that's not the intention of investigate here. It's really to get into your body, to keep everything present and attuned to what's happening right now. And finally, the N of RAIN stands for nurture. And that's where we're moving from witnessing and investigating to actually giving ourselves compassion and giving ourselves whatever it is that we're missing, whatever it is we're most wishing for in this moment. So, and then the final stage after the rain, we're discovering like what the most vulnerable part of ourselves need to feel seen and loved and appreciated and accepted and safe. So as it happens so frequently, at least for me, I had the opportunity to learn what I'm teaching about just in time to teach it. This past week, I had a really difficult exchange with my brother, who I've had a challenging relationship with for these past years. And my intention is to give you just enough context without too much information to give you a sense of what my reign on this was like. So this is not so conceptual, that you get a sense of how rain is experienced. So recently my brother and his wife told their 18-year-old son that, you know, it's our house and our rules. If you don't follow our rules, you can't be in our house. And they took him to work and gave him a little bit of money and said, you're on your own. And I think they were hoping that he would come back home and do what they said, but he's didn't. And they went to fend for himself. And he's very resourceful, it turns out. Well, that wasn't what the issue with my brother was about. It was, you know, I talked to my brother a number of times while this was happening and was asking him, are you worried about this? Are you concerned about his welfare? Are you concerned about your relationship with him? Do you know where he is? Do you know what he's doing? And what he said was, I'm not worried. We know where he is. He's in contact with us from time to time. I think this will sort itself out. This is not a big deal. And so I thought, okay. And then his son called me and I spoke with him for a little bit and just gave him as much moral support as I could. And I didn't, and this was my part, is I didn't think to call my brother and let him know I'd talked to his son, because he'd said everything was fine. He was in communication with him and he wasn't worried. Well, my brother found out I had talked to his son and not told him I'd talked to his son, and was furious with me, sent me a text saying saying he felt betrayed. And I called him to see if he would talk, and he wouldn't talk. He said he was angry, it'd be a few days. So that gave me the chance to practice rain. So in I ask myself, I ask myself, what am I experiencing? And I was angry, and I was hurt, and I was feeling unjustly and unfairly accused. I felt like he didn't see me for who I am. I believed that he was continuing a pattern of distrust with me that felt unjustified. I felt sad that we didn't have a more trusting relationship. And I felt ashamed that I must have done something in my childhood or young adulthood to cause him to feel this way. And then the A, I asked myself, can I simply be with this? And this was the hard part. I wanted to do something. I wanted to write him, I wanted to call him, I wanted to text him, I wanted to do something. And I sat with it. I sat with this flood of feelings, the anger, the hurt, the sadness, the shame, and just allowed that to be what it was. And then in the investigate, I asked myself, what's the worst part of this? And what's my unmet need? And the worst part was that I felt like he saw me as someone I'm not, as someone who couldn't be trusted. And my unmet need was a desire to be seen for who I am and to have my goodness seen and affirmed. So the nurture was, I asked myself, how do I give myself what I need most? And who might help me? So I evoked the memory of my father, who always thought the best of me and always saw the good in me. And I reminded myself of what he knew, that while I mess up like everybody messes up, I'm well-intended and I'm loving and I'm trustworthy and I would do anything for the people I love. So with all of that, I asked myself what has shifted, and I realized that I was out of my pattern, that of the pattern of me, which is the one who wants to fall on my sword and apologize and do whatever it takes to make it better. And that I wanted a relationship with my brother that was with a current version of me, not a past version of me. And I felt like I could tell him that, and later I did. Okay. So that's my version of rain, and now you get to do it. Okay, so if you will, closing your eyes and taking a few deep breaths, sitting in a comfortable way, alert and at ease. Bringing to mind a difficult situation you've encountered. Some current situation in which you maybe feel stuck. Something that brings up some emotional reactivity, whether it be fear or anger or hurt. Any experience to which you'd like to bring mindfulness and compassion with this practice of rain. It could be a relationship, some conflict of misunderstanding. It could be something that goes on with your own behavior, some addictive tendency. It could be something around work or not working, or perhaps feelings of loneliness or isolation. Any situation in which you may feel reactive in some way. Take some moments to enter the experience, visualizing the scene or the situation, remembering how you felt, the words spoken, the actions taken, sensing into the most distressing moments. As you reflect on the situation, ask yourself, what is happening inside me right now? And we'll start with the R of rain. Recognize. What are you most aware of as you reflect on this challenging, stuck, or triggering situation? What emotions come up? What sensations or thoughts? Take a moment to become aware of whatever is predominant or the emotional tone of the situation. Moving on to the A of rain, allow. Noticing and making space for whatever experience you're having. Letting it be what it is. You might experience with mentally whispering, it's okay, let it be. You might find you want to push past it, push it away, and noticing that, and making room for that as well. Then comes the eye of rain, investigate, bringing an interested and kind attention to your experience, considering the following questions. What's the worst part of this? What's the most painful thing I'm believing? What emotions does this bring up? Where in my body am I experiencing these emotions? And how does it feel? Are these feelings familiar? Something I've experienced before? If the most vulnerable, hurting part of me could communicate, what would it express? What does this part of me need most? And finally, the N for nurture, calling on the wisest, most compassionate part of your being, offering yourself what you need most. A loving message, perhaps a tender inward embrace. You might gently place a hand on your heart. You might visualize yourself surrounded by soft, luminous light. Or imagine someone you trust holding you with love. Experiment to discover what works best for you to feel nurtured and nurturing. Offering care inwardly and letting it be received. Relaxing now and entering into the heart space that has emerged. Resting in this awareness and tending to the quality of your presence. Open, tender. Asking yourself, what is my sense of my being? And what has shifted from the beginning of the meditation? Closing with this poem by Adrienne Rich called In Those Years. In those years, people will say you lost track of the meaning of we, of you. We found ourselves reduced to I, and the whole thing became silly, ironic, terrible. We were trying to live a personal life and say yes, and that was the only life we could bear witness to. But the great dark birds of history screamed and plunged into our personal weather, and they were headed somewhere else, but their beaks and pinions drove along the shore through the rags of fog where we stood saying I.